The paradox of control highlights a counterintuitive relationship with self-mastery. It suggests that the pursuit of absolute control often results in increased anxiety and stress. Conversely, surrendering control to a higher power or a broader purpose can be beneficial. This surrender often leads to unexpected feelings of freedom and inner peace. Therefore, the paradox lies in finding liberation through relinquishing the need for total self-mastery. Humans possess an inherent desire for control. This desire stems from a fundamental need for safety and security. People seek to manage various aspects of their lives to achieve this sense of safety. These aspects include outcomes, aiming to influence results in their favor. The craving for control also extends to opinions, as individuals try to shape perceptions. Even schedules and spiritual life are areas where humans attempt to exert control. The Bible illustrates the concept of the illusion of control. James 4:13-1-4 warns against assuming control over future events. This passage highlights the limitations of human foresight and planning. It suggests that outcomes are not always within our grasp. The core issue is not with planning itself as a process. The problem arises from the presumption that humans can fully dictate the future. This presumption stems from the belief that the future is solely within our control. Effective planning acknowledges uncertainty rather than assuming complete control. The illusion of control can lead to increased restlessness. This illusion often generates fear when life circumstances change unexpectedly. Unexpected changes can include illness or financial instability. Relationship breakdowns can also disrupt the perceived control, causing distress. Resistance to personal plans can trigger feelings of anger. This resistance also often leads to feelings of anxiety. These emotional responses may reveal a deeper issue. The underlying issue is an attempt to assert personal control. This assertion can be interpreted as challenging a higher authority. Thus, anger and anxiety signal a potential struggle for control and authority. Scripture serves as a reminder of human limitations. It emphasizes that humans are not in ultimate control. Only God possesses ultimate authority over all things. Divine wisdom surpasses human understanding and capabilities. Self-control is not the only alternative to chaos. God's sovereignty provides a stable alternative. God's sovereignty refers to his ultimate authority and control over all things. This encompasses his power to govern and direct everything according to his will. Acknowledging God's sovereignty brings comfort and assurance. It provides stability by trusting in God's plan and purpose. Proverbs 3:5-6 is a passage that emphasizes reliance on divine guidance. It encourages believers to place their trust in the Lord. The passage advises against depending solely on one's own understanding or intellect. Trusting in the Lord is presented as an alternative to self-reliance. The promise associated with this trust is that the Lord will guide one's path. Psalm 46 addresses a world filled with fear and uncertainty. It encourages finding peace through faith in God's supreme authority. God's rule extends over both nations and the natural world. The psalm urges stillness as a means of recognizing God's power. This stillness facilitates an understanding of his exalted position. God's sovereignty refers to his ultimate authority and control over all things. God's goodness ensures that his control is exercised with benevolence and care. Together, God's sovereignty and goodness create a foundation for human security. This security is rooted in the understanding that a benevolent power governs all events. Therefore, God's control is not a threat to human dignity, but rather its ultimate safeguard. Romans 8 states that God orchestrates all events for the benefit of those who love him. This verse suggests a divine purpose underlying all circumstances. It implies that even difficulties are integrated into God's overarching plan. This perspective provides assurance and hope amidst hardship. It highlights God's active role in shaping events towards a positive outcome for believers. The concept emphasizes a structured, purposeful universe under divine control. It suggests that events are not arbitrary or coincidental. This perspective implies a guiding hand in all occurrences. The presence of divine guidance means events align with a greater plan. Surrender is fundamentally based on trust in a higher power. It stems from the belief that divine guidance offers greater security than self-reliance. This conviction provides a sense of comfort and reassurance. The core idea is that life's journey is safer when entrusted to God's care. Therefore, surrender involves relinquishing control and embracing faith in a benevolent force. Matthew 16:25 presents a challenging concept regarding the preservation of life. It questions the conventional wisdom of clinging to control in order to save one's life. Instead, it proposes a radical alternative: losing life to find it. This suggests that true life is discovered not through self-preservation, but through sacrifice. Trying to save life involves self-reliance. It requires defining one's identity. It also involves establishing a sense of purpose. Furthermore, it necessitates creating security on one's own terms. This contrasts with losing life, which implies dependence on external factors. Losing life for His sake involves relinquishing personal control. It means allowing a higher power to dictate the course of one's life. This act requires a deep sense of trust and faith. It is akin to handing over the pen to allow Him to write one's life story. Active surrender involves a conscious decision to relinquish self-centered desires. It entails embracing challenges and hardships, symbolized by taking up the cross. This surrender signifies a commitment to follow a specific path or set of principles. Ultimately, active surrender represents a dedication to discipleship and adherence to a chosen way of life. The cross is a symbol representing the subjugation of ego. It signifies the relinquishment of pride and self-importance. The cross embodies the sacrifice of personal rights and claims. It represents a transformative act of self-denial. Surrender, in this context, refers to yielding control to a higher power. Jesus promises a more authentic life as a result of this surrender. This authentic life is characterized by the presence of Jesus. It is also defined by a sense of purpose derived from Him. Finally, this life is empowered by His divine strength. The New Testament frequently encourages believers to surrender their lives to God. This call to surrender is often associated with the instruction to cast all anxieties on God. Casting anxieties on God is presented as a means of achieving inner peace and tranquility. Therefore, surrender is portrayed as a pathway to peace through faith and trust in God's care. Paul advises believers to avoid anxiety. Instead, believers should present their request to God. This presentation should include prayer. It should also include petition and thanksgiving. This practice is detailed in Philippians 4:6-7. God's peace offers protection for hearts and minds. This promise is realized through faith in Christ. It provides inner calm amidst life's challenges. This peace brings a sense of security rooted in spiritual belief. Peter encourages believers to humble themselves under God's power. This humility involves recognizing God's authority and submitting to His will. Believers are instructed to cast their anxieties on God. This is because God cares for them and is capable of handling their concerns. The transformation begins with humility, acknowledging a higher power. Humility enables the casting of cares, relinquishing personal control. Casting cares means entrusting worries and burdens to a divine authority. This act of surrender leads to inner peace. Peace is experienced as a result of divine protection and presence. Surrender involves acknowledging a situation exceeds one's personal capacity. It requires placing trust in a higher power or external source of support. This act of surrender can become a conduit for inner strength. It also fosters a sense of calm amidst challenging circumstances. Control, when excessively exerted, acts as a drain on personal energy. This depletion extends to various resources, both tangible and intangible. The sustained effort to maintain control often leads to a state of exhaustion. This exhaustion is not merely physical. It encompasses mental and emotional fatigue as well. The resulting state is often accompanied by feelings of frustration and diminished well-being. Surrender involves releasing the need for control. This release allows for a state of rest. Surrender promotes reliance on a power greater than oneself. This reliance fosters a sense of trust and faith. The act of surrender ultimately builds resilience. Resilience emerges from accepting limitations and seeking support. Paul's thorn in the flesh is a metaphor for a persistent personal struggle or weakness. This affliction served as a constant reminder of his human limitations. Instead of being overcome, Paul learned to rely on God's grace through this weakness. Surrender to weakness allowed divine power to manifest more fully in his life. This illustrates the principle that true strength can emerge from acknowledging and embracing vulnerability. Ultimately, Paul's experience demonstrates how reliance on divine grace transforms weakness into a source of strength. Paul pleads with God for relief from a personal struggle. God responds to Paul's plea with a message of grace. God's grace is sufficient to sustain Paul through his difficulties. God's power is most evident and effective when human strength is lacking. Weakness becomes an opportunity for God's power to be displayed. Paul paradoxically boasts in his weaknesses. This boasting is not out of pride, but for a specific purpose. The aim is to allow Christ's power to rest upon him. He embraces vulnerability rather than shying away from it. Weakness is seen as a conduit for divine strength. Therefore, vulnerability becomes a source of power through Christ. The paradox highlights that true strength can emerge from relinquishing personal control. This involves relying on a higher power or external support, such as God's grace. Paul's experience exemplifies this principle in action. His moments of greatest strength correlate with his dependence on divine assistance. Surrendered places are contexts where individual resources are insufficient. These situations highlight the limitations of personal strength and ability. In surrendered places, dependence shifts from self to a higher power. This dependence allows for the manifestation of divine strength. Surrendered places then become platforms, showcasing divine empowerment. The inadequacy of personal resources becomes a catalyst for demonstrating God's power. Galatians 2:20 describes a transformed life. I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. This verse does not imply a passive existence. Instead, it signifies an empowered dependence on Christ. This dependence fosters a dynamic relationship with Christ. The believer actively relies on Christ's strength and guidance. This active reliance results in a life empowered by Christ's presence. Surrender involves specific actions and attitudes in daily life. It is expressed through consistent discipleship. Daily discipleship requires conscious effort. These actions and attitudes reflect a commitment to surrender. Responsible planning involves thoughtful preparation and consideration of potential outcomes. However, plans should be held loosely, acknowledging that circumstances can change. A key element is maintaining an attitude of, if the Lord wills, reflecting faith and adaptability. This approach allows for graceful redirection and adjustment in response to unforeseen events or guidance. Healthy relationships involve avoiding manipulation or control of others. This is done to prevent rejection or emotional pain. Choosing honesty is a key component in building trust. Forgiveness is necessary for resolving conflicts and moving forward. Establishing clear boundaries is essential for maintaining respect and individual well-being. Vulnerability involves releasing the pressure to always project strength. It means moving away from the need to seem perfectly put together at all times. A key aspect of vulnerability is embracing the willingness to acknowledge personal weaknesses. This includes being open to asking for help when needed, without feeling ashamed. Vulnerability also entails confessing sins or mistakes, fostering honesty and accountability. By embracing vulnerability, individuals can build deeper connections and foster genuine relationships. Embrace the unknown future with acceptance. Acknowledge the limitations of foresight. I do not know what tomorrow holds. Find solace and security in a higher power who possesses complete knowledge. Focus on present-day obedience and clarity. Act according to current understanding without demanding complete future details. Trust in a guiding force while navigating life's uncertainties. A simple prayer embodies a posture of surrender and trust. The prayer begins by acknowledging personal desires and fears. It then expresses a willingness to surrender both desires and fears to a higher power. The core request is for guidance and leadership. The prayer concludes by asking for the grace to follow the guidance received. Believers are urged to identify areas where control is tightening the heart. This control may manifest in various aspects of life. Examples include a specific decision one is struggling with. It could also involve concerns about a child's path or future. Other areas of concern might be finances, reputation, or health. The core shift involves transitioning from a mindset focused on guaranteeing specific outcomes. The new focus emphasizes faithfulness in action and process. It requires relinquishing the need for absolute control over results. Central to the shift is trusting in a higher power or a broader process. This trust extends to accepting outcomes that may differ from initial expectations. The perspective change encourages a focus on integrity and dedication, rather than solely on achieving a predetermined result. The shift from clenched fists to open hands represents a profound change in the soul. Clenched fists symbolize holding on tightly, often due to fear or control. Open hands, conversely, symbolize release from this tension and a willingness to let go. This transition signifies trust in the process of life and acceptance of what is. Understanding God's nature involves recognizing both His strength and kindness. God's omnipotence signifies He possesses the power to uphold all things. His kindness ensures this power is wielded with benevolence and compassion. Trust in this combination of strength and kindness fosters confidence in God's plan. Exploring faith involves a process of surrender and reevaluation of control. The deepest surrender involves relinquishing the illusion of self-sovereignty. This means acknowledging that one is not the ultimate authority in their own life. Instead, it requires bowing to Jesus as Lord and Savior, recognizing His authority. The Bible states a promise regarding sacrifice and reward. It suggests that losing one's life for His sake leads to a greater discovery. This finding is not a diminished existence, but a liberated one. The promise emphasizes enhanced freedom as the reward for sacrifice. Therefore, the Bible equates sacrifice with the attainment of a freer life. A life anchored in divine love finds stability and purpose. This foundation is rooted in the sacrificial love of the one who offered his life. This love provides a firm base, preventing aimless drifting. It guides actions and decisions, aligning them with a higher purpose. Acknowledge the presence of stress and anxiety in your life. Pinpoint specific situations where you feel the need to control outcomes tightly. Recognize that this tight grip on control often exacerbates stress levels. Understand that releasing some control can lead to reduced anxiety and improved well-being. The question addresses whether one is attempting to predetermine a decision's outcome. This involves imposing a desired result instead of seeking divine guidance. It implies a potential resistance to accepting an outcome that differs from the preferred one. The core issue is the willingness to align with a higher power's direction rather than personal will. Obsessing over a child's future can lead to attempts to control their choices. This control may stem from a lack of trust in a divine plan. Consider whether you are dictating your child's path. Reflect on the importance of trusting a higher power's guidance. Allowing children to explore their own paths can foster independence. Trusting God's plan may lead to unexpected blessings for your child. Financial worry can be a consuming preoccupation. This anxiety often stems from a desire to secure one's financial future. Individuals may feel pressure to achieve financial stability through their own efforts. This independent approach can intensify feelings of responsibility and stress. The pursuit of financial security becomes a solitary endeavor. The focus is on whether one is excessively worried about external perceptions. It questions the tendency to prioritize maintaining a flawless image. This behavior is contrasted with being genuine and true to oneself. The core issue is the balance between reputation management and authentic self-expression. Health anxiety can manifest as excessive fear and worry about one's physical well-being. This anxiety often leads to attempts to control every aspect of health. Such control-seeking behaviors can stem from a lack of trust in a higher power's care. The alternative is to relinquish control and place trust in God's provision for health. This involves accepting that not all health outcomes are within one's control. Trusting in God's care can alleviate anxiety and promote a sense of peace regarding health. The focus shifts from guaranteeing specific outcomes to acting with faithfulness. This involves releasing the need to control or predict results. Instead, emphasis is placed on consistent and dedicated effort. Faithfulness implies a commitment to the process, regardless of the immediate outcome. This shift fosters trust in the unfolding of events and reduces anxiety about achieving predetermined goals. Trusting God involves surrendering control over specific outcomes. It means believing that a higher power is working towards a beneficial resolution. This trust acknowledges that the divine plan may differ from personal expectations. It requires faith that the ultimate result will align with a greater purpose. Even when facing uncertainty, trust provides reassurance in divine guidance. Trusting God allows for acceptance of outcomes that may not be immediately understood. The act of opening hands symbolizes releasing control. It represents a conscious decision to relinquish personal desires. This surrender involves trusting in a higher power's guidance. It signifies acceptance of God's plan, even when unclear. Opening hands embodies vulnerability and faith in divine providence. This practice fosters inner peace by aligning with God's will. God possesses ultimate control over all aspects of existence. He has the capacity to manage every situation. Surrendering concerns to God implies trusting in His ability. This act of surrender acknowledges God's power over challenges. Therefore, faith in God's control provides reassurance and strength. Trust in God involves recognizing His omnipotence and ability to manage any challenge. This trust also acknowledges God's benevolence and genuine concern for individual well-being. Believing in God's strength means acknowledging His capacity to resolve problems. Accepting God's kindness assures that He is attentive to personal needs and concerns. This faith provides comfort, knowing that support is available during difficult times. It encourages reliance on a higher power for guidance, support, and resolution. Surrender involves placing trust in a higher power. It is about trusting in God's guidance. It is also about trusting in God's provision. Surrender is not synonymous with carelessness. Carelessness implies a lack of responsibility or attention. Surrender requires faith and reliance on divine support. Surrender involves relinquishing the belief in absolute control over one's life. This act challenges the illusion that individuals can dictate every aspect of their existence. True surrender acknowledges the limitations of personal agency. It embraces the acceptance of external forces and unforeseen circumstances. Ultimately, surrender is about aligning with reality rather than fighting against it. Bowing to Jesus signifies acknowledging Him as Lord. It also means recognizing Jesus as Savior. This act involves submitting to His authority. It entails accepting His guidance in one's life. Ultimately, it is a demonstration of reverence and obedience to Jesus. A freer life is characterized by a release from the need to control external circumstances. It involves reducing the burden of constantly trying to manipulate one's environment. This shift in perspective can lead to a greater sense of ease and well-being. The key is to accept what is beyond one's control and focus on internal responses. True security and purpose are found in the love of Jesus. This love provides a firm foundation for life. Jesus' rule offers guidance and direction. His sacrifice demonstrates the depth of His love. He gave His life to rescue humanity. Embrace His love to discover your true calling. Discipleship involves a daily commitment to spiritual growth and learning. Surrender is not a singular act, but an ongoing process. It requires consistently trusting in God's guidance. This trust should extend to all aspects of one's life. Formulate plans thoughtfully and responsibly. Maintain a flexible approach to those plans. Acknowledge the possibility of unforeseen redirection. Be open to adapting plans based on external factors. Embrace the potential for revised pathways and outcomes. Adaptability in faith involves a willingness to adjust one's plans. This adjustment is rooted in the trust that a divine plan surpasses personal intentions. It requires relinquishing control and embracing the belief in a higher guidance. Ultimately, adapting in faith means accepting that a divinely ordained path is superior. In relationships, prioritize honesty as a foundational principle. Practice forgiveness to foster understanding and healing. Establish healthy boundaries to protect individual well-being. Seek divine guidance in navigating these relational aspects. Acknowledging personal weaknesses is a sign of strength, not frailty. Willingness to seek assistance demonstrates humility and a desire for growth. Confessing shortcomings to God fosters spiritual healing and renewal. Sharing vulnerabilities with others builds trust and strengthens relationships. Openness about imperfections promotes authenticity and genuine connection. Prioritize acting on present, clear information. Avoid analysis paralysis by focusing on immediate steps. Complete knowledge is not a prerequisite for initial action. Clarity in the present moment guides effective decision-making. Embrace action based on available understanding. Progress is achieved by acting on what is currently known. Trusting in God's plan involves faith in a divine purpose. This trust is essential even when understanding is absent. It requires believing that God's intentions are ultimately beneficial. Embracing this trust can provide comfort during uncertainty. It also encourages patience as God's plan unfolds. Trusting God's plan fosters a sense of peace and hope. The path to inner peace involves experiencing a sense of divine protection over one's heart and mind. This experience is often linked to the act of surrendering oneself to a higher power or divine entity. Surrender implies a release of control and a willingness to trust in a greater plan or purpose. This trust can lead to a reduction in anxiety and fear, fostering a sense of calm and tranquility. The guarding of the heart and mind suggests a shield against negative thoughts and emotions. Ultimately, finding peace is presented as a spiritual journey facilitated by faith and surrender. Empowered dependence involves recognizing the need for reliance on a higher power. This concept encourages individuals to seek strength and guidance from God. It promotes a lifestyle where divine support is central to decision-making. Living in empowered dependence means trusting in God's capabilities and wisdom. This approach fosters a sense of security and purpose in life's challenges. Ultimately, it leads to a life characterized by faith and reliance on divine providence. Transformative sacrifice involves surrendering personal desires to a higher purpose. This surrender requires letting go of individual agendas and self-centered goals. The focus shifts from personal fulfillment to alignment with divine will. Such sacrifice is considered transformative because it reshapes one's character. It leads to spiritual growth and a deeper connection with God. Vulnerability can be embraced as a source of strength. It involves recognizing and accepting one's weaknesses. This acceptance allows for reliance on a higher power. Divine power can then work through these acknowledged weaknesses. Surrender should be a consistent, daily practice. This involves consciously relinquishing control in various aspects of life. Trust in a higher power is central to the act of surrender. This trust should extend to every decision made. It also includes trusting in relationships with others. Furthermore, surrender involves trusting in all circumstances, even when challenging.